All right, guys, thank you so much. We are doing another political video, actually. Like I said in a community note I made a few weeks ago, as much as I like doing these videos, they kind of are on the lower end of the priority scale. So maybe I'll do these once a month. I don't want to inundate you guys with my views. It's, but today's video, we are going to be, let me put my phone on silent real quick. We are going to be talking about what I perceive to be, and that's a key point here, this is all, at the end of the day, just my opinion. I was born at a particular time, in a particular place. I have shortcomings intellectually. I am just as prone to bias as everyone else. And this isn't me being humble. These are all true. I am not a god. I have intellectual shortcomings. So does everyone else. So does Jean Gebser. I don't want it to seem like I have the ultimate knowledge of any of this. So you have your own experiences, your own beliefs, your own values. More power to you. I just want to share my beliefs because, frankly, in the humanities section, you guys have probably got onto my channel because of philosophy, Gebser stuff, rationalism. Appreciate it. Love you guys. And let's call a spade. That has been essentially controlled by the left. And I think a lot of people don't hear my perspective or this kind of perspective told in a way that is at least somewhat intelligent, not to pat myself on the back, but usually you hear it from your idiot neighbor who just kind of emotioned his way into everything because he doesn't like the left. Yeah, okay, that's nice. Like I said, we're going to be talking about the abuses of the left. Now, this is a key point. Let's say you're on the left and you're watching this and you want to convince me to your side. I think that's completely reasonable and completely fair. You will never, ever convince me unless you address this. And I don't see how you could address this without kind of pushing back a little bit. Let's put it this way. You will never convince me over to your side if you take everything that I said in here and you go, yeah, but Trump's orange man bad. Trump's a unique evil. No, that will not happen for two reasons. One, none of this is all so bad, I don't think it could be hand-waved away. So that's number one. Number two, by what standard is he a unique evil? It's certainly not by any historical standard, because then we're going to invoke Mao, we're going to invoke Pol Pot, we're going to invoke Stalin, Hitler, of course. So he's obviously not as bad as that, and I will not accept the hysteria. No, I will not accept it. I don't see, this abuse stuff has gone way too long, way too far. The double standard is insane. We are tired of just kind of living with it. It's very frustrating. So if you want to convince me to your side, you will have to address this. You could convince me economically, maybe, I doubt it, but you could convince me economically, or maybe just culturally. Maybe you convince me to be a little softer on certain cultural stances. Great. I will not go unless you address this. So it'll be fun. Again, I'm expecting a little more pushback on this. I'm not pulling from Gebser necessarily. That's not what this is. That's more the Seeing the World Integrally video. So let's get into it. By the way, this is probably going to be a two-parter, a little mini series in this series, because there's just so much, and it's just insane how much stuff there is. Now, I tried really hard not to pick things that were hotly contested in terms of a factual matter. Like the 2020 election, I think there was clearly some wrongdoings, I guess. I don't know if I can say it rises to the level of fraud. It was a unique election for sure, and there's definitely potential for fraud, but it is tightly contested on a factual matter. So I haven't looked into it too much to the point where I feel definitively I can say what did or didn't happen. So there's a couple things that I don't think will be in here just because what's the point? And also at the end of the series, I've decided I'm going to give a criticism of the right. I think it's important. You want to break out of the rationalist left versus right? So kind of transcend and render both transparent. So let's get into it. So since the 60s, the left has injected identity politics into our political system and infrastructure in the form of DEI, affirmative action, of course, affirmative action coming first, disparate impact, jurisprudence, guaranteed funding for certain identity groups, or more recently, identity-based allocation of scarce and vital resources during a disaster. Remember the Hawaii Maui hurricane? We remember. And other identity-driven laws. So This alone, I think, is such an abuse of the system that it warrants either complete denouncement and removal from our political system or finding other ways to find back. This is totally the only way you could possibly justify this, I think, if you just did some sort of racial revenge arc from Jim Crow. That's the only way I could see you possibly justifying this. The whole point of American politics, the whole point of our Constitution. And by the way, if you point out like Jim Crow and stuff, I will never, ever, ever defend that stuff, ever. Ever. I think what that happened there was a moral atrocity. I'm not denying that legitimate white supremacy, not this new left stuff, but the legitimate white supremacy, yeah, that it unquestionably existed. Now, this lasting effects of slavery, that's a separate claim, and we'll get into that later, but the whole point is that you're not supposed to do this. Now, just because people broke the Constitution, I don't think that gives us an excuse to do it too, especially when we do it in such an immoral way that stokes these tensions that can lead to, and have led to, incredible suffering on a physical sense in terms of violence. It's not good. You are not supposed to have DEI and affirmative action in America. You're not supposed to have it. And when they did it in Jim Crow, it was wrong. And I would never, ever, ever want to reinstitute that again, ever. It's disgusting. Yeah, we'll get to refuting this stuff more broadly, but the identity-driven resentment is sufficient to demonstrate its undesirability, both politically and morally. So essentially, you have increased the racial tensions in this country. And of course, I mean, man, that is a really dangerous game you are playing. I do not want to be a part of that. I think it's disgusting. I think it's immoral. It's not in my soul. I just think it's the idea that you would purposely create hatred between groups so you could come in and sweep up political power and then stand on your soapbox and talk about how moral you are. It's just, it's not for me. That's another thing. I'm going to try really hard again to be a little more reserved. Some of you, maybe if you know me in real life, you may be like, why is he being so calm? You always want to put it's more convincing if I'm calm, and, it's just better for the soul. It's better for my psyche. It's not good to carry that anger around. It's just not good. Also, and if you haven't noticed, I believe there to be a qualitative distinction between left and right. So you will not hear me both sidesing everything. The only time I will both sides anything is when it just is a respective reality. I do not believe, like the enlightened centrists do nowadays, who become a stereotype where they take these sins, if you will, to put it in Christian language, the sins of the left and the sins of the right, and they count them up. And one outweighs the other exponentially. And they go, look, both sides have done something wrong. I watched a guy come in and murder a family, and then the victim, or excuse me, family of the victims there, came up and slapped him. Both of you did something wrong. You will not find that here. Not only is there a quantitative distinction, I think, between the abuses of the left and the right, at least since the 60s. I don't condone anything before that. And the left. So not only in a quantifiable sense, but in a qualitative sense. I think not only are they doing more, they're doing worse stuff. So no, I will not be doing both sidesing everything where we just kind of falsely equate everything just because you want me to pretend to be unbiased or anything like that. It's not going to happen. Now, if there are times, absolutely, where both sides do something wrong, then yeah, they absolutely should be called out, undeniably. But I really don't like that. I also don't like that the what's the word? Compulsion to both sidesism, if you will. When people say, hey, well, both sides have a problem, right? You only really see that when the left is getting criticized. When people criticize the right, you never, ever, ever, ever hear people go, can you be both sides, please? Let's be fair. I've been in some of these online, like, left-wing communities just to kind of keep tabs on them. Trust me, they are not sitting there going, Vosh, Destiny, can you do both sides, please? I mean, no, that doesn't happen. It only happens when you criticize the left, and it only happens when the criticisms are salient. It's just not going to happen. Okay, so let's continue. Even worse, the negative effects of these policies and programs have only compounded in accordance with the expanded scope of the programs throughout the decades. So, we had the 60s, affirmative action, and all this stuff, which, again, we will be refuting more intellectually in a later video in this series. We're just outlining the abuses here. But all that has gotten worse as these programs have just accrued more and more power. The negative consequences have followed. So, unfortunately, we're going to have to get into the Orange Man a little bit. So this is going to be general stuff regarding the Orange Man. I know it's going to be very traumatic. Okay, so this is just general stuff. The media have become the left's propaganda wing. Essentially, they become Pravda from the Soviet Union, or Squealer from Animal Farm. From the Russian collusion hoax, and we will be returning to that, do not worry. The very fine people hoax, the racially charged hoaxes like Amy Cooper and those like her, Nicholas Sandman, remember that? Quote, literally Hitler, Jussie Smollett, the fiery but peaceful line, and that's another thing I've noticed about that. They go, oh, so we have that one thing about the fiery but peaceful, but you can do all this stuff. No, my friend. That is not just one thing. See, this is that both sides and shit I was talking about. It's not just one thing. That's just a really good example. That one example stands in for 1,000 instances. So don't ever let people say, oh, because of that one line from CNN. No, that was 1 out of 1,000,000. It was just a really good example. So the fiery but peaceful line and the broader downplaying of the riots, of course, which ended in billions of dollars of damages, which ended in the destruction of families, in the form of the destruction of businesses. If you deny that, I'm going to call you privileged, unironically. And it led to deaths. Not good. That was one of the most insane things I've ever seen. We'll return to that too, don't worry. The covering for Biden's mental decline, as they claim that simultaneously, so they covered for Biden's mental decline. We all saw he was a vegetable. At the same time, they said that when Trump misspelled coffee as covfefe, he, with complete sincerity, should be removed from office based on mental unfitness, the invocation of the 25th Amendment. Fetterman, too, remember him? They covered for his decline before he turned on them. So he ran as a progressive Democrat. Everyone was like, no, this is amazing. He's doing great. Then once he got into office, he started agreeing with Trump. All of a sudden, he's mentally unfit. He never heard a peep about mental unfitness for 4 years when Biden was in charge. But yeah, it's okay. I guess if you point this out, you're the bad one. The 51 intelligence agents lying on behalf of Hunter Biden, and there was, I can't remember some poll, and I don't put too much trust in polls, by the way. That's rationalist bullshit, okay? Rationalists tried to show you a chart, and then they go, look, there's no differences between men and women. I have a chart here. No. But they said that many people, that would have affected their vote. And then Musk, according to the Media Research Center, he's received 96% unfavorable coverage since he joined Trump's. I don't even like Musk. I think he's a midwit. I think it's a joke when people call him a genius, okay? If you want to call him a business genius, I understand if you disagree. The proof is kind of in the pudding. He's nowhere even close to a Gebser, a Goethe, an Einstein, not even close. It's almost a joke. I don't even like Musk. Rittenhouse was insane. It is staring you right in the face. It was the most black and white case of self-defense I have ever seen in my entire life. And to watch everyone just straight up lie to me and gaslight me. If you want to do that, fine. You have forfeited your right to claim moral and intellectual superiority. Brett Kavanaugh, that was absolutely insane. There was no even proof. There was no evidence, let alone proof, that Brett Kavanaugh did anything that he was accused of. It was such a blatant lie, and it was so obvious that it was a lie. And to watch everyone, like this giant social experiment, oh my gosh. I mean, we'll get to the could you imagine game, but my God, it's just like insane. Can you offer me a right-wing equivalent of that since the 60s? Or are you going to go back to 1925? I can't think of one. It's insane. The kids in cages, remember that? Remember the kids in cages? When Obama not only did he do the same thing, but he did it to a worse extent. And AOC, her cringe photo shoot, when she went to go take her photo with the Tigress, and there was no kids there, and she was just crying like a little actress. Oh, God. So bad. The numerous lies surrounding COVID, there's almost too many to list out with COVID. COVID almost deserves its own video. And I'm not even some of you guys are lost on COVID with your pandemic stuff. I'm really not that deep into conspiracies like that, but let's call a spade. When you first come out and you say when you repeatedly say you will not get the virus if you get vaccinated, and then you get vaccinated and you get the virus, you are lying. We all know you're lying. Stop bullcrapping me. So let's see. Another one is any attempt to impose tariffs on China was not only seen as an unwise economic policy, but a moral failing. This is when Trump was in charge. A moral failing. Wow. For imposing tariffs on China. Not only is it an unwise economic policy, but a moral failing. Isn't that incredible? Wow. Not minimum wage, though. Not minimum wage, which destroys minimum wage workers. Not your price controls, which lead to shortages or surpluses. Not that. That's not a moral failing. But imposing tariffs on China, got it. Countries like China, Canada, and Australia were all praised by elites, politicians, and ordinary Americans when they were enacting totalitarian policies during COVID, all while condemning America in our intolerance and oppression. So when those countries, China, Canada, and Australia, were doing tyrannical things that were immoral, and I'm not just talking about getting wrong because we were in a new situation and you took a guess. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about good-natured mistakes, well-intended mistakes. That is reasonable. It's a pandemic that we had never seen before. It is foolish to expect perfection from our politicians. It's just, I don't care if it's left or right. You did not see me ripping on the left for not getting it perfectly right on the pandemic, unless I thought they were being corrupt. It's just not reasonable. Nonetheless, China specifically and Australia were doing some really crazy stuff, some really over-the-line things. And you had our elites like Bill Gates, like Hillary Clinton, like all these guys saying we were being the oppressive ones for not wanting to shut down, which we eventually did. Not China for locking everyone in their homes and forcing them not to leave under threat of gun for like 2 weeks straight and just doing crazy, crazy things. It's just insane to me. The removal from the Paris Climate Accord, you remember that, was portrayed as literally the end of the world. And international organizations like the UN and the World Economic Foundation or Forum, whatever it is, fought tooth and nail to defy the Trump administration. The idea that leaving a ridiculous, inconsequential, meaningless accord or negotiation where we are being ripped off and we are subsidizing all of Europe for no reason, the idea that that is the literal end of the world, or it's even just bad geopolitics, I don't take it seriously. I'm trying to think of what the right-wing equivalents of these things are. There's probably some. I'd have to think about it. I'll have to do it, but I'm sorry. I mean, when you look at all these together, any one of the Russia collusion will get there. My God, but all of these, I'm sorry. I already tell you what's going to happen. The same thing is going to happen that happens every single day in my life when people bring up politics. They go, yeah, that's all true. That's right. And that's really bad. Yeah, I'm going to verbally profess that's really bad. Now we're going to hand wave that away, and Trump's really bad. Why is Trump really bad? Because he does 2% of what we do. Got it. And then, of course, obviously, the left called him Hitler so much that he was almost assassinated. So with a straight face, people on the left want to try to assassinate the political opponent. We all saw it. And then they will say, it is good. If he would have been killed, that would have been good. And you don't deserve power because you're not morally anointed like the left is. Unbelievable. Their moral and intellectual superiority is so strong that they will kill your candidate and claim that they're the morally righteous ones. It's just unreal. I mean, whew, my goodness, I need to restrain myself. Deep state. Okay, so now we're going to get into the deep state. The deep state is absolutely real. The idea, for you to not believe the deep state is real, you would have to essentially say that through all of human history, when it comes to engagement with power, that there has been corruption through literally every civilization, every tribe, every whatever, every state, whatever you want to call it, until right now. You realize how ridiculous that is. The idea that people in power would collude to maintain or increase their power, the idea that that can be hushed away as a conspiracy theory, I don't take you seriously. I'm sorry. You're not living in the world. I don't know what to tell you. Okay. Russia collusion. This is a big one. In October 2016, members of intelligence agencies colluded on a fake story known as the Steele dossier, led by Obama, by the way, the boy wonder, in order to spy on the Trump campaign. Of course, this is the classic Russian collusion hoax. The deep state cooked up a blatant lie in order to obtain a warrant that would allow them to spy on their political opponents. Not only did millions believe that Trump was Putin's puppet, but said warrant was then used to justify the further investigation into Trump's campaign, even for unrelated crimes. That's a very important point. Even for unrelated crimes. They didn't find anything because they made shit up. And then they said, okay, well, we're just going to search for other things. We'll get there. So Obama made all that stuff up. Remember that stuff about Trump peeing on like in a Russian bed or something with a prostitute because he wanted to show how manly he was compared to Putin. It's a complete lie, and they all knew it was a lie. By the way, this was confirmed like last month. Anyone who is not just deluded knew this in 2016. That it was confirmed 10 years later should be a scandal in its own right. They just made it up, okay? And then you had over half the country sincerely believe this Russian collusion stuff. Now, we're going to get to the implications for a second, but moment of silence for all you left-wingers who say that the only reason the right-wing people believe they do is because the media tells them to. When you took the Kyle Rittenhouse hoax, the Nicholas Sandmann hoax, and the Russian collusion hoax, hook, line, and sinker, you took it uncritically, and you are projecting onto others that they're the ones who can't think for themselves. So this is a blatantly politically motivated witch hunt. That's just what it is. One that, if the roles were reversed, would immediately and rightfully warrant the charges of fascism or authoritarianism. But everyone seems to have lost their tongues while this was happening. They made up false evidence, used that false evidence to obtain a warrant so they could spy on their political opponents during an election year. They were quite literally willing to risk nuclear war. Russia has nuclear bombs. They were willing to risk. That's not an exaggeration. If you want to argue, we can argue. Nuclear war for this. I just need to stress this to you because the party that always screams fascist, even when you're enforcing laws on the books created by elected representatives, i.e., a border or ICE, are acting in the most fascistic and authoritarian ways possible. They are so sure of their moral and intellectual superiority that they have decided to work around all political and moral rules or guidelines in a deceitful and power-hungry way, all as they verbally profess the virtues of being anti-fascist and on the right side of history. So they are acting in a way that is infinitely more fascistic than anything even close to what Trump has done, even close. And yet they claim that we're the fascists by trying to lessen the government's power. That's interesting, by the way, and not them. So they knowingly made up false evidence to get a warrant to spy on their political opponent during an election year so they could try to get him out. They also lied about collusion between Russia and the U.S. To be clear, if Russia really did collude with Trump to the extent that the Democrats said, and by the way, we'll get to your walking back in a second, that's a war crime. Or not a war crime, but that is a provocation of war. You don't just do that in two global powers. You don't do that without threatening the possibility of war. Again, I need to stress this to you. This one thing alone is so you will never be able to convince me to your side unless you acknowledge. I don't see how you could acknowledge this and still say, yeah, the left is totally anti, like they're just totally above board. I don't understand how you could possibly do it. They just accuse you of what they're doing, and then they just verbally profess their virtue. It's very frustrating. I do not like it. It's treason, really. That's what it is. It really is treason. It's just, you will never be able to convince me without getting into this stuff. But it gets worse. Here's the great thing. Then they springboarded off of this knowingly false accusation to hunt Trump and his team for crimes unrelated to the initial accusation. Remember Robert Mueller? Again, this is all after they claimed that we're the fascists. So not only did they do that Russia collusion stuff, once they obviously found no collusion, which, by the way, let's talk about that for a second. To be clear, you guys said, the left, I should say, the left said that Trump and Putin worked together and meaningfully and significantly altered the election in favor of the Republicans. How they did this, there was a bunch of different ways. But you guys are moving the goalpost because they said, look, no, there was Russian collusion because Russia had Twitter bots. That is not the claim you made. The claim you made was that he was a puppet of Putin, and it was exactly that. It was like a movie, essentially. Okay, do not even think about trying to walk that back. I will not play that game. So, after all that, after that unbelievably fascistic action, when they found nothing, they said, okay, well, we're just going to search your team for unrelated crimes. That is not the American law system, the legal system. That is not the way it's supposed to work. If they do that in China, if they do that in India, if they do it in Africa or Brazil or other South America, okay, that's fine. In America, we don't do that shit. And quite frankly, our legal system is what causes millions of migrants in a very real way, in a very experiential way, not just up here, but out here, to risk their lives and their families' lives, many of which have died. Partly is to be involved or be affected by this system so they don't have to do this ridiculous stuff that we see through history. So they just said, okay, well, we're just going to find anyways. You need a warrant to do that. You can't just do that. But they did, and of course, we're the fascists because they verbally profess that we are. Okay. I mean, if I punch you in the face every day and I accuse you of being violent, does that make you violent? I mean, come on, what are we doing? If Trump ever did this to Obama or Biden, the screeching would break the sound barrier. You would cause every single human being on the earth would turn into Helen Keller by the screeching. The screeching would be so loud, it would create a new dimension. It would form a new consciousness structure a la Gebser. That's how powerful it would be. Protests, resignations, propaganda, all of it, all the accusations. It's just insane. It just blows my mind. But the left doesn't, and then hand waves it away when it's brought up, and then gets incredulous when you brought it up. Incredulous with you for bringing it up in the first place. It's amazing. One of the most fascistic authoritarians, a thing I've ever seen, and it's just insane. If you want to do that, by the way, you just own it. Just own it. Just be like, yeah, you guys are immoral. You're morally inferior, intellectually inferior. We're better than you. We're obviously, if we're moral and intellectual superiors, we should have all power. Just say it. Just own it. Just be like, yeah, you're all dumb right wingers. Just say it. It's just annoying. Yeah, whatever. This, by the way, this is election interference. You cannot, you can't hold these two positions. On one hand, there was Trump-Russia inclusion hoax because there was Twitter bots. Oh, shit, man. But there wasn't election interference when Obama did all this stuff, when he spied on his political opponent illegally, unconstitutionally, immorally, and then he springboarded off that to just do a witch hunt on anything else. That's not collusion, but Twitter bots in Russia, which affected nothing, did. Got it. Okay. What else? Trump was impeached twice. Excuse me, in a shamelessly contrived manner. Even worse, his trial was held after he left office, when he was a private citizen, meaning it was most likely unconstitutional. They claim that Trump's misspelling of coffee as covfefe warranted the invocation of the 25th Amendment that would remove him from the office on grounds of being mentally Wait. They claim that Trump... Okay, these are two separate points. These are like unrelated. I don't think he was impeached because of the coffee thing. That was stupid. Yeah, I already touched on. So he was impeached twice in a shamelessly contrived manner, not because of the covfefe. I have no idea why they put those next to each other. I can't remember what the fuck was. Oh, that's what it was. That's what it was. It was for the mishandling, I think, of the classified documents, which I'm pretty sure he declassified. So they impeached him. And this is important. They impeached him when he was out of office. Well, guess what Obama did? The exact same thing. And with a straight face, they said, can you believe how fascist the Republicans are being for trying to impeach a president who's out of office? Guys, it's impossible to take you seriously. Like, man, this is a big one. Removing Trump from the ballot. Whew. This is one of the most blatantly authoritarian, anti-democratic, and unconstitutional things I've ever seen in American politics. January 6th was bad, and I will most likely mention it in my criticism of the right when I do that. It was not an insurrection, not even close. And and don't even think about offering me, oh, did you see Destiny's Debate? Yeah, I watched your boy get smacked up by Andrew Wilson and Rob Noor. He embarrassed himself on the insurrection. There was not an insurrection, okay? It was a joke. The idea, you could say it was a riot. You could say it was unlawful. You could say they deserved time in jail. You could say it was immoral. I agree with all of that, by the way. I wasn't there. You didn't see me out there doing that. I thought it was wrong. But words have meaning, and insurrection has a legal meaning, and no, it did not even come close to an insurrection. I like this idea that if you just physically occupy the Congress for like 20 minutes, therefore the entire country's yours, and we're just going to do what you say. It's absurd on its face. And you know how I know this insurrection stuff is stupid? In removing Trump from the ballot, the Colorado Supreme Court claimed that he clearly orchestrated an insurrection, but wouldn't provide a definition for insurrection because, quote, he would meet any and all definitions of the term. So he is guilty of insurrection, but we're not going to offer a definition because he meets all the definitions, which makes you wonder, well, why not just pick any random definition out of the hat if he's going to meet all of them? Because he doesn't meet the definition of any of them, because it's all absurd. It's Banana Republic stuff, Central America stuff, no offense. It's ridiculous. It's the most blatantly authoritarian, unconstitutional thing I've ever seen. But again, because the left verbally professes themselves to be morally and intellectually superior, just people buy it. I have no idea. It just blows my mind. It's blatant fascism as they screech and even form these stupid cringe groups called Antifa. It's so dumb. All of this, according to the left, isn't fascism. The Obama thing we talked about, and removing him from the ballot completely unlawfully, completely in a blatantly ridiculous manner. All of that isn't fascism, but enforcing a border is. Got it. I'm trying to be nice, but if you believe that, I say this with the greatest respect. I just don't take you seriously when it comes to politics. I just don't take you seriously. They also tried to remove him from the ballot when Letitia Jones blatantly used the law as political warfare and tried to throw him in jail based on a crime that literally no one, and I don't use that word lightly, you guys know me, no one had ever been charged with before and that had no victims. Not a single victim or claim of wrongdoing, just blatant authoritarianism. If we didn't get him on the Russian collusion, if we didn't get him on the weird 2020 stuff, if we didn't get him on the Colorado insurrection, if we didn't get him on the Mueller investigations or the Comey investigations, we will get him on this. And they didn't get them. They tried to, of course, we got the mugshot, right? The great irony, it was Letitia Jones who was guilty of the worst financial fraud crimes than Trump, which I believe is a perfect microcosm of the left, as I've explained in this video, so far at least. When the right said lock her up for Hillary Clinton, or to Hillary Clinton, I should say, for giving nuclear secrets to an enemy, Russia, treason, no doubt, that was, quote, sexist and misogynist. But lock him up for a crime that didn't take place nor had any victims is perfectly acceptable. It really is just the perfect microcosm. Okay, so changing the rules. This is the next section. The second Trump sat down at the Oval Office, the left advocated to abolish the Electoral College, which coincidentally was not called to be abolished when Biden or Obama won. It's amazing how that works out. In autumn of 2019, 14 Democrats came out in favor of abolishing the Electoral College. Elizabeth Warren even claimed that if the Dem held the House, Senate, and presidency in 2020, that they could simply bypass the Constitution and create laws that force states to abide by the national popular vote. And they say these things publicly because they know that they're all just secure in their own superiority, and it's a false superiority. I saw an article the other week. I think it was the Washington Post, and it said, "We were hoping for a military coup against Trump, but that didn't happen. What next?" The way they just openly say, "Oh wait, he got in charge, he got put into power." Yeah, and he did it the normal way, like getting voted in? Yeah. Oh, well, that's unacceptable. Clearly we have to invoke violence to remove him. I mean, it's obvious. Again, I don't know how many times I could say it. Just imagine if the roles were reversed. Unfortunately, like, people are just so dogmatically tied. It's just so frustrating. Let's see. Oh, this is good. And and Harvard Law Review decided that Washington, D.C. should be reduced to a few federal buildings, and the area that was previously considered to be D.C. should become 127 individual states. Isn't that amazing? Of course, the people in D.C. vote overwhelmingly Democrat, so this would ensure that no Republican or any other party could ever even dream of obtaining power. And yet we're the fascistic ones. We're the immoral ones. We're the terrible people for daring to suggest that those who dogmatically seek power like goddamn Voldemort shouldn't get it. We're the evil ones. Got it. It's amazing how truth is determined based on just what the left verbally repeats. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. Yeah, like I said earlier, what's important to note here is the brazenness and the acceptability that these people speak with. They have a double standard. Why wouldn't they? They're morally and intellectually superior. After all, how could we not be? We verbally profess ourselves to be. You talk about enforcing the Constitution or laws, you get called a fascist. All right, next up, everything to the Supreme Court. So numerous contentious and impactful issues like abortion and affirmative action. have been settled by the Supreme Court as they quote-unquote interpret our rights away and inject anti-constitutional ideas into the Constitution. This is what Gebser would call non-rights, or left elements that are designed not towards individual rights, rights conferring protections over property and possessions of the individual, but social justice, so more collective, communistic, focusing less on quantity and more on quality. It sounds nice when I'm describing it, but I understand the left now that I've read Gebser better than they do. But they failed. If you've seen my Seeing the World Integrally video, I think they failed. So they take laws and rules that they know are so unpopular that they will never be passed by elected representatives in Congress and just move them to the Supreme Court. The Warren Court in the 50s and 60s in particular sought fit to interpret our rights away, in spite of the fact that millions who lived in America for decades never interpreted the Constitution this way, and all seem to interpret it in the exact opposite way. Again, those issues I mentioned, pro-life, pro-choice, why that is being decided by the Supreme Court at all is beyond me. That should be decided by lawmakers, but they know they can't make it in law, so they just move everything to the Supreme. It's just power. That's all. It's deficient magic structure. It's just power. Like, don't miss me with this. Abortion, DEI, all settled by the Supreme Court and not by elected representatives. Okay, the filibuster, remember this? Which the Democrats invoked a record amount of times during Trump's presidency, was called to be abolished when Biden got into power. So when Trump's in charge, we will invoke the filibuster a record amount of times, which, by the way, you are in your right to do. That's how I'm cool with that. This is how politics in America works. It's supposed to be slow. It's supposed to be gridlock. There's supposed to be compromise. And we're not supposed to do this authoritarian rushing everything because we just want to get power. No, I'm cool with you invoking the filibuster. If you have the certain amount of House seats or Senate seats or whatever it is, and you feel the need to do it because it's politically effective for your constituents, more power to you. That's not the problem. The problem is once Biden gets in charge, you call to abolish it. That is a dangerous game, my friend. Essentially what they're doing is they're tacitly admitting that they will wield power not in line with principle, but in line with whatever will allow them to attain and maintain power. It's kind of obvious based on the stuff I've talked about here. Remember the refrain, pack the courts? We're going to pack the courts. Amazing. If the rules aren't favorable, just change them. It's amazing how that works out. I remember doing that too when I was 6. And I didn't make a lot of friends when I did that. It was amazing. So if the Constitution and legal system preclude censorship, then just team up with the social media companies to enact soft censorship of political opponents. So we saw this with shadow banning. Michael Schellenberger, Matt Taibbi, I think Barry Wise, they all reported on this. They said, yes, there was shadow banning. Obviously, the left knows a lot of the left is subversive, and they just lie. The jig is up, guys. Like, you guys have been subversive for way too long. You know exactly what you're doing. We know what you're doing. Okay, we're not delusional. They know they can't just come out and censor, so they do this soft censoring. This was admitted. Remember Zuckerberg came out on Rogan. He's like, yeah, the Biden told me to delete this and to censor this. And I was like, oh, shit. Again, this is if Trump couldn't even dream of 1% of what you guys do. It's a joke. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Zuckerberg's, I'm glad I wrote that down. This was all on overdrive during COVID, by the way. Once COVID hit, this was really big. Thank God Elon bought Twitter, by the way. And I don't love X. I think X kind of sucks, but it's better than what it was, unfortunately. Plus, also, if you can't legally censor people, you could just culturally do it in the form of hate speech. It was wielded as a social weapon, a tool of cancellation, and a tool of resentment, really. I mean, talk about shirking any sort of moral responsibility, any sort of soul work. I mean, my God, for you to just go around and just pull out that get out of jail free card, then be immoral and just accuse people of being bigoted with absolutely no evidence, and then you redefine the word to be so ridiculous that Forrest Gump would think it was intelligent. It's just immoral. It's wrong. It's evil. Like, what are you doing? Why are you stoking these tensions? Like, you know what the really frustrating thing is? It's a bunch of people who have never really, faced any consequences. It's a bunch of middle-class people who do this. And I say this coming from somebody, I did not grow up poor, not even close. I didn't grow up rich, but I didn't grow up poor either. And you don't see me going around, just causing conflict for no reason. It's just unreal the way that people do that. They might not have been legally barred, but they are culturally and socially. Social ostracization is a huge thing. We're social animals as Homo sapiens. That's a huge point. I mean, the idea that this isn't going to have a negative effect is it's almost a joke. And yeah, the great irony is the hate speech, 99% of the time is just nothing. It's just opinion about a charged topic you disagree with. Like Michael Malice said, who I'm not a fan of. I don't take anarchists seriously. If your political philosophy only works in here and there is nothing out here that you can appeal to, I don't take you seriously. When you go up into the clouds and come back to the mountains with your rationalist systematizing and your imposing space between you and the world and all of your systems, and you come back and you say, good news, everyone. Nothing can be justified. No government, no laws, and we're all just going to do this violent anarchist utopia. Yeah, you'll have to excuse me if I don't take you seriously, especially if you're not 50. My God, imagine being an anarchist over the age of 19. Okay, let's see. Immigration. Ooh, this is a big one. So the left has decided essentially to import new voters and residents, endowing them with all, if not more, of the rights and entitlements of citizenship, and uses the tax money of the soon-to-be replaced citizens as the means to fund these excursions. So they take money from A, who is a naturally born citizen, and give it to B, who is not, with the end goal of replacing A with B. You guys can try to... Here's the problem. Especially if you guys watch this and you're part of my Gebser series. You know when to be rational and when not to be. So you're making a measurable claim here, or at least I am. A measurable claim. It's demographics. We can just look at the numbers. We're not appealing to spirit. We're not appealing to soul. We're not appealing to feeling. We're not appealing to anything immeasurable. Everything we're appealing to is immeasurable. So when I look at how the numbers have changed, don't tell me not to believe my eyes. It's obvious, and it's interesting too. It's funny. Because they say things like, you have some guy who just came off the boat. He's been in America for literally one day, and he's an American. But if we decide to maybe say deport, and let's say, well, we'll send you back to Guatemala. We'll send you or actually, no, you came from Guatemala. We'll send you to Belize, okay? Or Haiti. Does that sound good? And they go, no, I'm not Haitian. I'm not from Belize. Like, why would you do that? Well, if you step over the line and one day in your America makes you American, wouldn't that same logic apply for you going to Haiti? All of a sudden, we've discovered a reason, and then we've discovered, the absurdity of our beliefs. So the amount of stories of immigrants being transferred through the NGO system, non-government organizations, that honestly deserves its own thing. I'm a little upset I didn't, maybe in the next part of the series. And housed in luxury hotels while being given healthy stipends subsidized by the taxpayer are too great, to the point where Stephen A. Smith was ranting about it on his show. More power to... I hate Stephen A. Smith. I think Stephen A. Smith's a moron. But he was right on that, because his perspective was, well, we have African-American citizens that could be using this money. And instead of that, you're taking from them and giving it to these new people, and all of a sudden they have a vote. Isn't that convenient? It is planned, it is deliberate, and I believe wrong. If this happened to literally any other country, you would not be saying this. I don't believe you. Or if you did, it would just be suicide. So I don't really care. There are many problems with immigration that are not hateful, by the way. You can be opposed to limitless illegal immigration without being hateful. Believe it or not, these two things are more than possible. I would argue they're reasonable. One of those reasons is they've led to the creation of sanctuary cities, another blatant abuse by the left, another blatantly unconstitutional act. To be clear, sanctuary cities are an open flaunting of the law and political tradition in pursuit of pure power. That's all it is. For a sanctuary city is when you just say, hey, in this physical geographic area, domain, we are not enforcing federal law. Do I have to explain to you why that's a little authoritarian and not constitutional? Okay. Let me ask you this. If you think sanctuary cities are good, would you accept a right-wing sanctuary city that ruled that they would not enforce gay marriage or the Civil Rights Act? Would you accept that? No, I don't think you would. So why is it okay when you do it, but it's not okay when we do it? Oh, because the laws we break are bad and the laws you break are good. Okay, well, I don't believe this, but they would say, all right, well, the laws we break are bad and the laws you break are good. What's the... It's so blatantly a double standard. I mean, think about it yourself, guys. I mean, again, just own it. Just own it. Be like, yeah, you deserve to be in a double standard because you're morally and intellectually inferior. Excuse me. It's just, and they walk around like it's non-conscious. Like, Of course we're flaunting the laws. It's what we want to do and we want power, but you can't do it. What, are you crazy? Are you nuts? Are you immoral? Are you like the spawn of Satan? What, are you crazy? I'm the crazy one for pointing it out. Got it. This will be refuted more in a later video. There are like 5 other reasons that are against illegal immigration. It's so ridiculous. Yeah, moment of silence for the right is the fascist crowd. Biden's DOJ attacked Governor Abbott, that's governor of Texas, through federal lawfare for trying to enforce a border, something that has been in our law since the inception of our country. So to be clear, the President of the United States went after Abbott with his DOJ for enforcing the border. And all these guys can vote, by the way, because you made all these laws where you don't have to show ID and you can have these things and they can get on welfare services and they can use hospital resources. Well, I'll be getting into that when we refute the left. That'll be later on. Abbott, by the way, ignored him, and he was right to do so. I'm glad he did so. Don't talk to me about the Constitution when you use it as toilet paper. I'm never going to accept that. Do not ever say you're being unconstitutional and that's for wrong. If you're on the left and you agree with this stuff, I will not take you seriously. As a matter of fact, this might not mean anything to you. It's just my opinion, but you will have revealed yourself to me as someone, to put it nicely, that I don't take seriously. Abbott was right to ignore him. Good. I don't care. The left does not have an exclusive claim to power, moderate or sane, and neither does the right. I don't think the right should have an exclusive claim. Absolutely not. No. So we replace one tyrannical thing with another, just one's painted blue, the other's painted red, as if the right hasn't gone bad, ever. That's absurd. Nazis, Franco, and then arguably Jim Crow. So yeah, we're not doing that either. That's ridiculous. No. All right, let's see. This might be the last one. Yeah, we'll do this, the last one. Rioting, the unbeatable high. Riot, shoot your nerves to the sky. Shout out to the Dead Kennedys. Listen to the song Riot by the Dead Kennedys when you work out. Boom, bang, down, 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 down. It's all gonna blow. Yes, I love that song. Okay, so the Summer of Love was one of the most insane things I've ever seen in my entire life. I hope you know, by the way, when you guys act in such a blatantly unprincipled way with such double standards, and you can do this. You, again, don't cry to me when there's a group on your opposite side that you've created all of a sudden doesn't care about following the rules, and they care about power too, and now they're going to use it against you. With a straight face. I mean, the far left is like, I can't believe the far right exists. Oh my God, it's almost like we created them. Yeah, I know, you did. So the riots cost billions of dollars, permanently destroyed businesses and homes, destroyed the social fabric of our communities, and led to the death of innocents, including minorities. I would love to hear the right-wing. Can you name me a right? I must have missed that. Did I miss the right-wing riots of 2019 or 2021? Did I miss that when we lost 200 people? Oh, yeah, that happened on Mars in that sci-fi book I was reading. That's right. Yeah, that was a good book. And the worst part about it is that not only was it built on a lie, the idea that police are killing innocent minorities in a wanton manner, I think I can't remember last year's stats, but I think the average of black people who are killed by cops is around 25 to 30 yearly, and then you take that and you have to do white cops against unarmed African Americans, and unarmed meaning you just don't have a gun or a knife. If you are driving a car into someone, that counts as unarmed. And once you do that, I think it's high single digits or low double digits. So around 9 to 15. That's how many people were, or minorities, I should say, were killed by by white cops. The idea that you could burn down entire cities and do all this insane stuff that lead to, like I said, death, the loss of billions, the loss of social trust, the loss of hopes and dreams in terms of businesses. Man, I have to restrain myself. And you know what the worst part about it is? The Democrats, that's the politicians, that is. They voluntarily allowed it and even funded it in some cases so that they could come out and say, look how terrible Trump's America is, because 2020 was an election year. So remember when Kamala paid for the rioting, or the bail of the rioters? Do you remember when all the politicians said that they wanted to fund and donate money? you were funding death to human beings and death to cities and destruction into entire families' well-being and their ability to serve themselves, all based on a lie, all based on a blatantly calculated lie from the left and the media that is just not true. People literally died on account of being so sure of their moral and intellectual superiority that they destroyed cities, bailed out the criminals, people died in the process, and then they point the finger at others that they are the evil one, they are the wrong one. It's just unreal, just unreal. If someone can remind me of and like I said, if your example of the right-wing riots are from 1925, I think we've made our point. So that'll be the end of this video. I hope I was restrained enough. I try really hard. This is just my opinion. Again, I really have no time, no Gebserian time for the false both sidesing. The false both sides. Now, if you do have where both sides are doing something wrong, yeah, you should do that. Let me give an example. The far left, what do? They create utopian, futuristic societies that fail and leave us to sort of hell on earth. What does the far right do? They create utopian, idealistic societies based on the past that lead us to hell. So yeah, to a certain extent, they are kind of equal. They're both driving us off the cliff. One might drive us off 0.3 seconds earlier, but so what? So yeah, there are going to be times when you can both sides, but I'm sorry, buddy. This is just, it's not it. We'll get to some right-wing stuff. I'm trying to think of anything on this level. I can't really. But I love you guys. Again, please, I love you. This is just my opinion. Don't take this as gospel. I'm just some moron. If I'm just some guy you would run into at Safeway and you go, hey, sorry, didn't mean to run into you. I'd be like, oh, hey, have a good one. Thank you, bud. That's it. I don't claim to have some expert knowledge. I'm not a genius. But you know what? If you guys have a right to share your opinion and be so sure of your opinion, so do I. I love you guys. You guys are the best. Also, I just released a video with Adam from the channel Unthank Me. He is the man. I appreciate so much him taking time out of his day to speak with me, especially someone who has such a small channel in terms of quantity. I really obviously don't have a ton of subscribers. I'm very appreciative of all of your guys' views. It really means a lot. Please go check that out. He spent a lot of time editing that for me. It's really kind of him to do. I'm very, very grateful for that. Go check that out. He's the best, and you guys are the best. I love you guys. Thank you.